Hello, everybody. It is great to be here one more time today. And my name is Gary Fowler, and I'm the CEO, president, founder of GSD Get You Done Venture Studios, premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart, yes, the heart of Silicon Valley. I've been involved in multiple startups and several unicorns. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, also Eva.ai. I'm the CEO, president, founder of GSD Get You Done Venture Studios. Today, we have 133 companies that have come through GSD, our superscaler, from 57 countries around the world. We believe that intellectual capacity is evenly spread, but opportunities are not. I'm also an author. I've recently written a book on generative AI. I've written over 140 articles about artificial intelligence. With that, I'd like to bring my incredible guest. Aleks Gollu is a founder CEO at 11site, where they generate inbound leads with on-demand meetings. He's from El Cerrito, California. He's a veteran of the Bay Area. He's a venture startup and angel-backed startup with 2 positive actors, and he's working on his third. He has experience in automated highways, telecommunications, especially areas like real-time video and supply chain. His fortes in taking less bleeding edge technologies and turning them into something real. He's brought a proven track record of building teams, setting a vision from a product, driving revenue, growth for all stages of the company, from a life cycle, from a founding to an IPO, both in startups and Fortune 500 companies. And you know, it's a lot different. It's a lot more political in the Fortune 500 companies. We're going to talk about that in a bit. With that, I'd like to bring Aleks on board. Hi, Aleks. How are you today?
Hey, Gary. Nice to be here. Thanks for those kind words.
Yeah, no. So tell me a little bit about it. So you worked in Deutsche Schule in Istanbul. Are you originally from Istanbul? Were you from?
Well, I am originally from Istanbul, Turkey, and I'm also of Armenian descent. So my mother tongue at home was Armenian. On the street, it was Turkish. So when it came time to go to middle school and high school, I went to Deutsche Schule Istanbul, which is the German high school. So that is basically where I learned German. That was my third language. And then at the German high school, I learned English. So that English is my fourth language. Today, English is the language in which I can express myself best. And I can definitely write and conduct business an order of magnitude better than in those other languages. In fact, I was just in Istanbul in June for the 40th anniversary of our graduation.
Wow, that's amazing. Time flies by you, doesn't it? It goes fast.
It sure does. It sure does. And it was interesting to see all of those old good friends. It was good to sort of remember those days. And the funny thing is, even though we learned German first, English second at that school, today pretty much everybody from that school speaks English better than German, because English has sort of become the standard language that everybody speaks. Afterwards, I was also in Berlin, and you go to a restaurant and the waiter is speaking English. Because
so what do you
from Ukraine or Croatia or whatever, they don't speak German, so they take your order in English.
It's amazing. So you go down through. And have you been to Armenia, by the way, Aleks?
I have not been to Armenia. So
what kind of good Armenian are you if you've never been to Armenia?
Well, I'm a global Armenian. Look at it that way. We all are global citizens, so it doesn't matter where we are physically. So
I'll tell you, it's a wonderful country. I've been there several times, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice.
It's somewhere on the bucket list. The day will come.
For
now, there are only 168 hours in a week, and the startups and everything else take most of that.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about it. So how'd you get into MIT? Would you just wake up one day and say, whoa, I want to go to MIT. This is a place for me?
Well, I'll tell you the story. So 3 people from my high school used to get a fellowship and go study in Germany. And until my year, all of a sudden, the German government said, well, why don't you do your undergrad and then come over? Now, we were set in our heads that we were going to leave home, declare our independence, live our own life. So if it wasn't going to be Germany, what could it be? And luckily, there was another student who was 2 years older than me who had applied to MIT and gotten in. So I knew it was doable. So I applied, I got in. More importantly, they provided the financial aid I would have needed to be able to do that. And that's how I ended up at MIT.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, was it hard?
Well, for me, it wasn't, because I do enjoy engineering, math, and what I do in that moment. There were a lot of people at MIT for what they were going to get in the future. They were going to get into medical school. They were going to become rich. And for them, it was painful because, I mean, it is a very intense place. People also say MIT is a great place to be from, not to be at.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually had a good time.
And
So,
so,
because I enjoyed what I was doing.
what do you do for fun at MIT? Go to the math or chess club, or what do you do for fun out there?
So that at MIT, what I did was, if anybody asked me for like going out someplace, never say no. You didn't have to, because there weren't as many people who would say, "Oh, let's go party, let's do this, let's do that." The risk of falling into that was so low, because I mean, pretty much 99% of who gets in expects to be in the top 1% of the graduating class. So that's the environment where everybody is working
Well,
as
what
hard.
happens when they find out they're not, and they end up at the bottom 1%? It's still not a bad place, but it must be interesting to see people that have come from high schools all over the world that were valedictorians end up becoming last in their class and at MIT. Right? It's interesting.
So for most people, it's fine, because I mean, you adjust. But and MIT actually does a pretty good job of selecting the right type of people. But
Mhm.
every once in a while, you get a couple people who, you now looking back, those people would have excelled in a liberal arts college, but MIT was not the right place for them, and they have a harder time adjusting. It's not that, they are not in the top 1%, but it's like what the curriculum is expecting them to do.
And did they work you hard?
They don't work you hard, you work yourself hard.
Then they give
You
a
work
business.
yourself harder than they would probably care, but it's the place people go to just excel, right?
No, that's great. And so you did that, and you graduated, and then you went right in for a PhD. What made you decide to do that? You said, "Well, I like studying. I figure I'm going to keep going."
So when I left high school, that was sort of the plan. Somehow unclear why that bit was set in my head already at high school, that I wanted to just go and do a PhD. And I even had envisioned that the admission into MIT would also guarantee an admission into the PhD program. And then the friend of mine in high school, who was 2 years older than me, he told me, no, that's not the case. At the end of the 4 years, you start all over. This time it's GREs, not SATs, and you're going to have to apply. Now, he himself went to UC Berkeley. So I then, January of 87, came to Bay Area. I visited Berkeley, Stanford, Caltech, and I said, okay, it's time to go further west. So, and I applied for UC Berkeley, got into the program. And what happened was, 2 years into it, with a master's, I'm thinking, well, I'm going to get a PhD in 3 years. Life starts, and I don't quite know what to do next. I don't have the experience of industry. So that's when I decided, after my master's, to work for a while. And now, of course, being from Turkey, I didn't have US citizenship. So that was also a good vehicle. You work, you get a green card, and you get onto that path. And of course, money is a factor. So, I mean, I was paying non-resident tuition. It's great that I had a fellowship, but you never know what's going to happen. So 3 reasons: money, green card, and experience. After my master's, I worked for a while. I
Mhm.
joined Oracle. So when I heard about Oracle, the company was like 300-400 people. By the time I joined, there
Now,
were
did you get to
2,000.
meet Larry Ellison there?
I have met Larry Ellison, yes.
Now,
So
was he interesting or not?
He definitely has a lot of energy. I even met not only Larry Ellison, but also Bob Miner, who was the co-founder. He has passed away since. In fact, last night I was together with a number of friends who in September of 1989 started working at Oracle. I mean, back then Oracle was hiring like 80 people a month, and they would put you in this boot camp in Foster City. There was a Holiday Inn. So you would live there for 3 weeks and 4 weeks, and you would learn about Oracle and the products and get to know each other. So it was an indoctrination. And I mean, some of us, we stayed friends after all these years. So that was
Wow, that's
89.
amazing. Now, I hope you got shares in the company and kept them.
I got shares. I can't say I kept them.
Uh-huh. Now, I heard he's a very,
But one way or the other, those shares converted into this house. So
oh, you can't beat that. So you did that. And then what made you decide to go into Technicron Communications? Was that also in the Bay Area?
So now Oracle, when I heard about them, was 200, 300 people. By the time I got there, there were 2,000. And I was like, this is too big. I'm going to be doing the same thing for the next 2, 3 years, right? There's always that in my head that I may go back to PhD and I need to get as much diverse experience as possible. So Technicron Communication Systems was a Berkeley-based company, and they were only like 100 people. So I also knew people. I had considered going to Technicron, and I had said, it's not sufficiently different. There were a lot of UC Berkeley people there. So 6 months into Oracle, I said, okay, I'm going to switch to Technicron. Back then, where Oracle was, Ralston Avenue in Belmont. I mean, in Berkeley, I was used to going to Cheese Board. I was used to going to French Hotel, get my cappuccino back then, get my newspaper, some good bread, and that stuff wasn't available in Belmont either. So it was nice to come back to Berkeley, come back to a smaller startup where nothing stayed the same for more than 3 to 6 months. That ensured pretty much that over the next 2 years, I was going to do as many things as I wanted to. And indeed, it was great. I mean, we had a project for British Telecom. We had a project for Bell Canada. Both were successful, both delivered. And next thing you know, 2.5 years had passed. I had my green card. I went back and talked to my advisor at UC Berkeley, Praveen Varaya, who is no longer with us. And he said, look, I mean, if you want to come back, you should come back now, because if you don't come back now, because I was telling him, work is going quite well. Maybe I should work another year and then come back. So he said, no, just come back. So I went back, and then I was working on my PhD the 3 years that follow. That was automated cars, automated highways. So the stuff that Google is doing today, we were doing back in 92 at UC Berkeley in conjunction with General Motors, AC Delco, Carnegie Mellon. And all of that actually culminated in a huge demo in 97 in San Diego, where different technologies were all being showcased.
Wow. And how did you like it? So you did that. Then you were doing your PhD? You did your PhD from 92 to 95. So you took off, you went from TCSI to Berkeley, right? And
Yes.
So then you came back as a research engineer.
So what happened was, so the good thing about having taken a break between the master's and PhD was I knew that a good PhD was a completed PhD. So I didn't take another 5 years to finish it. I finished it in 3. But the project was ongoing, so it made sense to stay as a research faculty at UC Berkeley for a couple years. So that allowed me to bring all the work I did more to fruition, and also take time to decide what I wanted to do next. Do I want to go to a large company? That was a pretty much of a no. I had seen Oracle, and that already at 2000, they appeared too large to me. I could do a startup. I definitely was very much excited about that, having been at Technicron. Technicron went public when I was working there. Or I could stay in academia. somehow my heart was more in something entrepreneurial.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I had a couple other friends, the people who got their PhDs at that time, many of them became entrepreneurs. So we started trying to get funding. And the experience we had was we were told we didn't have enough business experience. Yes, you guys were smart people, but I mean, you don't know how to run a business. So I actually joined this company, Sapient. That was a Boston-based company that had an office in San
Well, they
Francisco.
were one of the fast-growing companies back in 97, 98.
Yes. So
They were doing a lot
that's
of e-commerce stuff. I remember
yeah.
I started Broadient, one of the first e-commerce consulting companies then. In fact, Broadvision invested in the company.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Sapient and Viant. There was another one.
Yes. So I joined Sapient. That was great. I mean, they had started with client server architectures. They were going to distributed systems, basically multiple processes interacting. I mean, this is getting technical, but it was also the era that Netscape was making inroads and the internet was arriving. So I was more involved at Sapient in helping companies formulate that internet strategies. I mean, Sapient built the first banking website for Wells Fargo,
Mm-hmm.
for Janus systems. So those were the projects that I was working on. But the intent of doing a startup of our own had stayed with us. And shortly after I joined Sapient, uh, we also, so the Farah Haskafi, who is the CTO in my current company, he and we teamed up with a third person who had been working at SPC Global, now AT&T. Actually, back then they were Pac Bell. So all of a sudden we had a team that was complete, because here you had a person who had been in the industry for 10, 15 years. So he sure knew how to run a business. Farouk Haskafi, Aleks Gollu, two guys with PhDs.
Mm-hmm.
And I by then am at Sapient, so I definitely know how to run an engineering team. Farah is still at UC Berkeley as a research faculty, so he can be the CTO. All of a sudden, we had a fundable team. Now, never mind that Farah and I did not know that much about telecommunications. We knew about simulation, transportation, but I guess we learned fast enough, and we did get a $3 million check from two VCs to build a company. I look back, it's like, why did they trust us? Right? We had a 4-page business plan, no
Mm-hmm.
product, no customers, no revenues, no experience. And yet they
Well,
picked
they
us.
did it and they won, right?
Yes.
You did that. So that was, then you went to telecommunication systems as a VP of marketing. Why would you go from OtelNet to telecommunication systems VP of marketing?
So they acquired us.
I see.
So what happened was we did get funded and we were growing, but the .com bust also happened. So now you are thinking, okay, will this become a billion-dollar company, or would it make sense to go into another company? And telecommunication systems had managed to do their IPO before the bust, so they had a lot of cash, and we were in the same accounts with our solutions. So it made sense to
Boy, they
merge.
were really lucky, Alex. Yeah, they were really lucky. Because I remember we did an IPO on NASDAQ. March of 2020 is when 2000, when the market went down. We did an IPO in June,
Yes.
July timeframe. And people said, don't do it. And we did an analysis and we looked at what the probability of failure is if you don't do it. It was so
Yeah.
high. It's like 98% because you run out of money. We did it. We didn't raise as much, but it sure carried us along. It helped us to continue to keep the company floating. And but a lot of companies, I remember pets.com, and there were a lot of companies that had I remember the sock puppet. They had the sock puppet. Probably today it would go. You know, honestly, a lot of those companies would have really taken off, but Webvan, et cetera, they didn't have the market had turned south. And then 2001, 9/11 happened. And
Yeah.
that kind of like, that threw it back a little bit more. I don't know about you, but it was like, oh my God, we got
And
two of these
so
families
now
right
that you brought up, I have to tell you the story. So there was a big RFP that Verizon, Vodafone had run, and we had responded to it. The results were going to be announced on September 10th. On September 10th, they told us it's going to be delayed by a day. And we are at the point that either we will win that RFP and it's going to make us, or if it's not, then, we are wrapping things up.
Wow. Oh my.
And September 10, they said a day later. September 11, I got up and, it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon by the time I was thinking about, oh, Verizon was going to announce today. Of course, they are not going to announce today, right?
Yeah.
And we pretty much said, okay, so this is it. Then we're gonna have to shut down because Verizon is not gonna move forward with this project anytime soon. They lost 2 floors in the Twin Towers. But then luckily a week later, Verizon did decide, they did choose us, and that made Hotelnet a
Oh my
success.
God, congratulations. I love that
Close.
story. I love that story. I've been in those situations myself. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. So you did that, and then you went from PINC. What was that? What was PINC all about?
So, I did join telecommunication systems. I did stay there for 15 months or so. The logical
You had to
next
stay
step.
there, Alex. Did they make you stay? Because sometimes
So,
they give you
we
like
did have a contract where everything was going to vest over a period of 15 months. They guaranteed our compensation, and that was the deal. But in all reality, there was not that much of a cultural match between a set of founders who came from the Bay Area and were ultimately from academia initially, to a set of founders that were in Annapolis, Maryland, and had graduated from the Naval Academy. So, and had been working for the government. So
wow.
it was good. It was good for them. It was good for us. It was a learning experience. But having built SMS applications at Hotelnet when Netscape was new, the logical next thing at the time was looking at location-based services. Nowadays there's a GPS chip in every phone. Back then there wasn't, and the question was, okay, how are we going to locate phones and assets? Is it going to be HDTV signals? Is it going to be moths and in inertial measurement units? So we said, okay, so there is a there. We can do a new company where we can track assets. And Siemens had an incubator in Berkeley. They were
Wow.
basically funding projects, typically for fresh PhDs. So my co-founder, Michelle Kiang, and I, we were not fresh PhDs, but we said, well, we have ideas, but we also have experience. So we came into that incubator. Siemens wrote the first check. And we then spent a year or two looking at what we could track, where we could find a problem that was solvable and would create value. We look at a lot of things. This was a time when Walmart was talking about RFID tags.
I remember.
Someday everything would have an RFID tag on it, including your Coke bottle, right? And we said, item tracking, that's too difficult. We went into warehouses. We said, okay, so pallets, warehouse management systems, can we increase the accuracy there? That looked hard. We looked at containers in shipyards, and we discovered that they are highly unionized, and the word RFID is not something you are allowed to talk aloud, or automation, because that would mean loss of jobs. So we said a startup cannot go there and play and succeed. And in all of those meetings, we also, I don't know if you remember Orchard Supply Hardware.
Sure. Yeah.
So we visited Orchard Supply Hardware. The general manager said, the pallets in the warehouse I have control over, but these trailers parked outside in the yard, somebody walked around this morning, wrote down which trailer is where. They are typing it in. I'm going to get it by tomorrow. And by then, a third of the trailers will have left, a third of new trailers will have arrived, and I have no idea what's happening. So
Wow.
that then became the germination of the idea of, okay, so we don't need to track items or pallets. Let's start with the biggest one, trailers that are nicely parked in a parking lot, and see if we can build a solution around that, leveraging RFID, GPS, and all of those technologies. Now, in today's language, we were an IoT company in the cloud making the supply chain more efficient. One short sentence.
Yeah.
Back then, we were saying, well, we use RFID to track the location of assets in distribution center and manufacturing plant yards. We also combine human input and ultimately manage the life cycle of the trailers in these facilities. So that company was Pink Solutions that we then funded initially with Siemens, afterwards with Sutherhill Ventures, Horizon Ventures came in as well. So that company I ran for more or less 10 years. In between, like at the end of 6-7 years, we did survive that downturn of 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
So at that point, we said, okay, so we're going to keep growing. So let's bring some professional management. The first team we brought didn't quite work out, so we had to let them go. Then we brought a second CEO, and he was doing a great job. So at some point, 10 years into being at Pink, 2004, 2014, I said, well, we are now on a trajectory where if I'm here every day or not, the outcome is not going to really be that different.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I pulled to the board and I said, okay, so what do I do next? So I was thinking I can go into academia and teach, I can do consulting. So my co-founder, Farah Eskafi from HotelNet, had done his own IoT company in the cloud startup. He had built a location capable chip that he had sold to Maxim Integrated. We started talking and said, well, what's next? And we saw video and we saw many incarnations of it. So the ability to interact with people with video online, to talk to friends, to do Zoom meetings. So we are aware of what WhatsApp is doing, Skype is doing, what Zoom, Blue Jeans, all of those companies are doing. We said, okay, are there any other problems that we can solve that these existing scheduled meeting companies and friends talking to each other companies are not solving? And what we saw then was the need for businesses to interact with their customers.
Yeah.
And that was very different, because it's one thing to have a scheduled meeting, but if you want to sell a car or if you want to buy some software, you do your own homework, you are on the website, and you as a customer want to talk to somebody. And you really want to talk to somebody now, not like in 3 days, 4 days.
Yeah.
So as a business, you spend all this money on your marketing and your inbound marketing strategies to generate traffic for your website. You get your web visitors, but do you really want them to fill out the form and leave so that you can evaluate the form after the fact and have an SDR, BDR get on the phone and start chasing that person who was a web visitor? So you didn't want to talk to the web visitor because that was not a qualified prospect. But now that they are a qualified prospect, you definitely want to get in front of them. Maybe you offered them a scheduled meeting, but you don't know if they're going to show up. In fact, industry statistics are 70-80% is the best you can hope for a prospect to show up to a scheduled meeting. So we said, okay, that's exactly what we need to do. We need to make sure that our customers, businesses, can qualify the web visitors that they have generated, not only on their website, LinkedIn, G2, Capterra, and so forth. And if these guys are qualified, then offer on-demand meeting with their team members that are appropriate for the qualification of the prospect that they have just identified. Now, the next step to that is So is the sales agent going to be ready for that meeting, right? So I mean, that's a big problem. In fact, I have experiences of cold calls that I receive, and they say, "Oh, we're going to do this for 11 site," and I say, "What does 11 site do?" Most of the time, it's cricket. Sometimes I hear keyboard clicks, and it's like, "Oh, you provide speed to lead," because they managed to go to our website fast enough to read the tagline. So we said that's also a problem, because whoever we put into that meeting, we need to give them call context. We need to tell them what it is that they need to achieve in this meeting. We need to connect them to the CRM. So there is a set of sales enablement capabilities that we have to bring to the meeting room. And if need be, they need to be able to schedule the next meeting, bring other team members into this meeting, and at the end, they should be able to summarize the outcome. And I mean, you know how sales guys are. We hate being in CRMs and going into and updating stuff. So anything that transpires in the meeting should be transcribed, summarized, and automatically put into the CRM. So we saw this opportunity before the pandemic. So we start working on this, and we have been working with companies. We were initially somewhat successful in automotive. So that's we are working with Fiat. Actually, you say talent is global, and
intellectual
are not,
but opportunities are not. It's like
right.
That's right. Part of it's talent. And so so tell us a little bit, we're coming up to the top of the show. Can you tell me, how did you come up with 11 site, and where's 11 site in terms of, you're doing a one-click browser-based real-time video communications as a service for enterprise, but tell us a little bit about it, and then how do people get a hold of you? What's the best way for them?
So the best way to get hold of me is either call me. We call that link Aleks Gollu. That's me. That's basically my E-line. That's the concept we have developed, is E-line, which is a digital communication identity. Now, we call that link Aleks Gollu is me, but we call that link 11 sales is our sales team, right? If you come to our website and you talk to our chatbot, we'll ask you a few questions, and we'll then connect you to a team member in our sales team on demand, right? Or if you spend enough time on our website and you navigate to our pricing page, then we'll say, well, this person is self-qualified. If they are interested in our pricing, we should be talking to them. So that's basically what we do, is our customers basically qualify their website visitors in real time. And if they are qualified, they offer an on-demand meeting, and it's the customer's choice. It could be audio only, it could be audio video, and most people do choose video, because if you are intent on buying a piece of software or a car or a ring, and we have customers in all of those industries, then you need some legitimacy and trust, and you need to be able to clarify a few requirements that are unique to you that you couldn't read about on the website. And those people really want to see the other person and be seen. So we get a lot of, Workable is a customer, WoveMade, which is a wedding ring, engagement ring manufacturer, they are a customer. Fiat is, Ford is. So it's this broad range of customers. So the way we look at our ICP is, if your customer is worth more than $1,000 so that you can afford having a 5-minute video conversation, if your sales cycle is short, right? So if there's going to be an RFP, you're going to get that RFP anyway. But if the customer is on your website and they may jump to your competitor, or they may get distracted and not buy at all, then you definitely want to talk to them now as opposed to later. So 30 days, 40 days sales cycles are short. And of course, you need to have a few people who have the ability to answer calls. So that's basically the definition of ICP, plus some amount of inbound leads, right? So you have done enough work that people come to your website, because it's like in the old days, you get an 800 number, but it never rings because nobody knows what that number is or who you are. But if you have your 800 number that's ringing off the hook, or people coming to your website, interacting with your chatbot, filling out forms, then it makes absolute sense to qualify those visitors in real time. And if qualified, offer a on-demand meeting, and we'll take it over from there. I mean, we'll make sure that we find a team member that's available, that's not busy. We will put them in a meeting. We have integrated with HubSpot because at this time we are focused on the mid-market and 25 to 1,000 people companies. They're typically on HubSpot, not all of them. But we can also integrate. I mean, we have the Zapier integration, so any CRM we can integrate with. So we'll make sure that your sales guys are prepared in those meetings. They do maximum progress. I mean, another thing we are seeing is that with this AI chatbot, Chat GPT, that has arrived, a lot of companies that are working on small and large language models, SLMs and LLMs, who are coming to us because they realize that their chatbot will be able to carry the conversation up to a point, and then you need to bring a human in, and that
Well,
you need to do.
you got to find that point, right, Alex?
Yeah.
So what is the best way? We're coming up that we're out of time now, and I don't want to lose you. But what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? You said LinkedIn.
So LinkedIn is a good way to go. Aleks Gollu. I'm still unique across the globe, the way the first name is spelled and all that. So they can connect with me on LinkedIn. They can also come to our website, 11sight.com, 11sight, that's you see here.com. And then they can call us. I mean, we are our first customer. They can engage the chatbot. They can go to the pricing page and initiate a call. There is a chance that it's going to be me. If not, they can actually ask whoever answered that. They said, hey, we saw Aleks on Gary's show, and we had a question, we had a comment, which I would love to hear from you guys. And if you actually come in the next few weeks and tell us that you saw me on Gary's show, then we'll give you an extra 10% off.
Yeah, fantastic. I want to tell you, thank you so much, Alex, for taking time out of your busy schedule to join my show today. It's a real pleasure having you here. And to my audience out there, wherever you are, thank you for joining one more time. And stay tuned for another exciting edition of GSD Presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. I'll be doing it again on Thursday. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy, and I'll be back at you soon. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Thanks, Alex. It's really
thanks, Gary.
Thank you.